Healing Medicine Show. The vision for this show is to provide healthcare professionals with resources and inspiration for both personal and professional development practices, especially those that are rooted in holistic health. We believe that the change in healthcare starts by focusing on the health and the healing of the healthcare providers. My name is Dr. Blair Thielemeyer. I'm the founder of Pharmapreneur Academy and host of the Healing Medicine Show. I'm very excited to announce our 2024 Women's Wellness Retreat scheduled for February 3rd through the 10th, 2024 in Samara, Costa Rica. If you're interested in joining us for a week in paradise, discovering what healing medicine means to you, check out the link in the comments below. Today, I am very excited to welcome Dr. Lauren Castle, founder of the Functional Medicine Pharmacists Alliance, and also co-host of the 2024 Healing Medicine Retreat. Lauren, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you, Blair, for having me.
Absolutely. So we're going to dig into your story. You attended the Healing Medicine Retreat in Costa Rica this past year in February. We obviously are not there now, even though we've got our virtual backgrounds turned on to show how beautiful the property is, because we just loved going down there so much, and the community that has been created, especially the community around healers and healthcare professionals who are looking to grow personally and professionally, especially through entrepreneurship. So we're going to dig into your own entrepreneurial journey and your own experience with stepping into that role as an entrepreneur. But first, I want to start off this episode the way we start off all of our Healing Medicine Show episodes, which is by asking you the question, what does healing medicine mean to you?
So I love this concept of healing medicine. And to me, it has two different definitions. I'm sort of like a grammar nerd. So I think about it as healing medicine, like the verb, that as healthcare providers that are embracing new ways of working with patients, we are actively healing the practice of medicine through being more open-minded to holistic practices, to actually listening to our patients and listening to ourselves whenever we think about how we want to show up as practitioners. I also think about it in terms of sort of the adjective of healing medicine. And medicine is an interesting word. In traditional healthcare and conventional healthcare, right? Your pharmacists and physicians and healthcare practitioners, we think about medicine being typically pharmaceuticals, right? Pills, first and foremost, come to mind, medicine akin to drugs or prescriptions. But we also think about a more expanded definition of medicine being each provider has their own type of medicine, right? So a doctor practices medicine. So it's an art form in a sense and a science as well. And you would think that all medicine is innately healing, but yet it seems that in our modern day society, medicine can also cause harm whenever it is not used appropriately, when it is potentially misused, or when it is used in a way that detaches it from the human care that needs to be delivered alongside of it. And I think that to me is where we now find ourselves in this healthcare system that feels very broken at times. And I think most patients would say that their typical experience in a medical setting is less than desired. Of course, there's individual practitioners that do amazing work, but as a whole, as a system, there's a lot that really needs to be addressed in order to provide the type of healing that we expect medicine to do. So I think about healing medicine in the sense of what does that look like? And, as a pharmacist, that might look like healing medicine means that we're using prescriptions for the right indications at the right dose for the right patient, right? But it might expand to potentially deprescribing a medication, right? That's a form of healing medicine without actually using a medicine at all anymore. So those are sort of the two definitions that I see with healing medicine, both as something that we need to do in order to restore it to what it really is.
Two things that really stood out to me there. One, you were talking about medicine as an art form, and that is something that I think we've seen sort of go away a little bit with modern medicine, as we're seeing more and more protocols and clinical algorithms, and are being told that, someday AI may be able to take our jobs. Those are the things that human piece of it, the human connection, that I think sometimes we tend to lose in our modern healthcare system. It's definitely something that I've studied Ayurvedic traditions and Chinese medicine and South American medicine. And it's something that I have seen in more traditional medicine and herbal type models, is there's a real focus on connection with the patient and making sure the patient feels seen and feels heard in what they're going through. And I think that's something that I feel very passionately about for community pharmacists in particular, to be able to offer to their patients, is that, we talk about the power of relationships. Those relationships, to me, can also be healing. You're the founder of the Functional Medicine Pharmacists Alliance. Medications can be healing, but also food as medicine can be healing. Supplements as medicine can be healing. We're finding value in things like acupuncture and yoga and sound therapy. And so there's so many more things that I would consider as medicine than when I went to pharmacy school. It was really like the pharmaceutical medicines were the only things being talked about as medicine. And as like you, I went on my own healing journey and was trying to figure out, why am I having trouble getting pregnant? Why am I not able to lose the weight? Why do my joints feel so stiff? Why do I feel like I have, arthritis at the age of 30? And starting to change my diet, change my supplementation, change so many things, removing things from my life instead of adding more things, even removing things, removing that offending agent can be healing. So that's one way I look at it, that healthcare practitioners and pharmacists can help our patients by getting a better understanding of maybe what are the things that are lifestyle modifications that could actually contribute to a patient's healing. Because I think most of us recognize that more medications are not actually better for your health.
My journey with functional medicine really all started out of my husband's own health journey and us just feeling like we were doing all the things that we knew to do, and the answer wasn't going to lie in antihistamines for allergies and anti-anxiety medications for the stress and sleeping pills for the insomnia, right? Like the answer wasn't going to lie in just taking a pill to try and make these ills go away. Like there had to be something else going on that was contributing to all of these things. And we just couldn't figure out what it was. And that was what led us to look into functional medicine and discover new ways of testing for things that we didn't learn in pharmacy school, and new supplements that, combine these more traditional herbal ingredients, but then also very modern versions of them that are purified and highly potent and able to actually have that, replicability that we're looking for in a clinical study, right? Like actual evidence behind these things. And the whole concept of evidence, I think, is so interesting, right? Because it's like, what more evidence do you need than thousands and tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of years of evidence for these plants that come from the earth? But that was, sort of like our first step into these other forms of medicine and kind of exposure to additional ways of healing that really changed my life and have shaped my career over the last 8 years.
Yeah, I completely agree because I think I remember when I applied to pharmacy school talking about, wanting to study what used to be called pharmacognosy. So the idea of like traditional herbal medicine, medicinal plants, that kind of thing. And it was very much dismissed as like, there's no evidence to show that it works. And yet from, the Eastern medicine side, there's tens of thousands of years of anecdotal evidence and use around safety. I think that functional medicine seems like a really nice combination of looking at food, looking at nutritional supplements and things as medicine as well. And so it kind of brings that East meets West approach. So I really think that there is such an opportunity for healthcare professionals. If you're out there wondering, is there an opportunity to bring some of these more holistic things in my practice? I would say use yourself as a guinea pig, and so that's really where I think I started my journey. Was when my son was born in 2017, he had this very deep sacral dimple, and it was almost an open neural tube. And the neonatologist had asked to do an ultrasound on it, and I said that was fine. I said his sister also has something similar, but it wasn't as pronounced. And afterwards, I kind of got to thinking. I was like, I took folic acid and prenatal vitamins my entire pregnancy. I was very careful about that, and yet he was born with this almost open neural tube. It was closed, thank goodness. But I got to thinking, and I remember talking about the MTHFR gene. I had gotten my pharmacogenomics certification a few years before, so I tested myself and found out that I was homozygous for the MTHFR or the MTHFR variant. And in looking at some of the high risk factors of what long-term lack of methylation causes, it was causing a lot of my symptoms, infertility and inflammation. Looking at a lifetime worth of high homocysteine levels, you start looking at neurodegenerative disorders. So Parkinson's and Alzheimer's, which both my maternal and paternal grandmother has. So it was my own health journey, trying to figure out what were things that would work, for me, and testing them for a short amount of time. I started taking a supplement for 3 months. I was feeling better than ever. I started, exercising more and eating differently, and things just kind of snowballed. So I always encourage people who are kind of on that, well, I need to see the evidence for this supplement or that before I recommend it. I always encourage them to treat themselves as the guinea pig and go discover that for themselves. So, Lauren, I want to ask you, you have kind of been on your own professional journey, stepping into entrepreneurship. I would love to hear a little bit more about, how have you transitioned? How has your life and career changed since building the FMPHA and stepping into full-time entrepreneurship since you attended our retreat this last February? And what are some of the biggest lessons and biggest learnings that you've had over this past year?
This year has been completely indescribable. If you would have told me a year ago that I would have left my pharmacy employer and would be actually working as a full-time entrepreneur and co-hosting retreats in Costa Rica with Blair, I would have been like, oh, you have the wrong Lauren. Like, there's no way. And, a lot of this journey has been building for some time. So I think to go back just a little bit and give people some some history. After I discovered functional medicine in 2015, and my husband had this, amazing transformation in his own health, I was really convinced that this was the future of healthcare. And so I researched all the different functional medicine training programs, and ended up deciding to do a master's in nutrition and functional medicine that was online through University of Western States. So I completed that between 2016 to 2018 while I was still working as a pharmacist in Michigan at the time as a pharmacy manager. I was actually working with patients during the Flint water crisis. So really leveraging the nutrition information that I was learning and how to manage heavy metal toxicity and all of these things that were just completely outside of my wheelhouse. But I got to really see it in real life. And then as I was going through my master's, I actually started teaching other pharmacists about functional medicine through speaking engagements at the Ohio and Michigan Pharmacist Associations. And through that process, I discovered that more and more pharmacists were really interested in this topic. And they were asking the same questions that I was, like literally Googling, how do you become a functional medicine pharmacist? And so back then, there really weren't any resources that were specific to pharmacists. Certainly, there's amazing resources through the Institute for Functional Medicine and American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine and these different multidisciplinary programs. But even as I was attending training through these institutions, there was clearly a lack of understanding around the role of the pharmacist. And so I saw these sort of two different areas of focus, which was how do we bring more pharmacists into the functional medicine space to get them this training and this knowledge and education and to begin using it in their own clinical practice? But also, how do we start to bring pharmacists into this functional medicine space so that we can provide better outcomes? Because a key difference between functional medicine and what a lot of people might think of as alternative medicine is that functional medicine, like we said, is really taking the best of both worlds. It's the East meets West. It's the ancient wisdom that we have from lifestyle and plant medicines, but also the best of modern technology and cutting edge lab technology and wearables and all of these cool things that we can do now to really get a deep understanding of what's happening in our bodies with data and puts all of it together. And so with that, we absolutely will utilize medications in a functional medicine approach. And I especially think about this with patients that have autoimmune conditions, for example. And this is something I often reference when I'm kind of describing, the evolution of pharmacy, even as a profession, has really gone from the early days of, like antibiotics sort of being like the first types of pills that we were really utilizing. And that's very much like a curative process into then managing more chronic conditions like blood pressure and cholesterol. And at that point, we're not curing things. We're sort of just modulating what's happening in the body. But I think that the science behind what we're discovering now in the pharmaceutical industry has so much promise. I was just reading yesterday that there's a gene therapy for sickle cell, right? Like, this is something that impacts millions of people all over the world and is life-threatening and has had no cure, right? Like, this is not something that you can just manage on its own. So yes, absolutely, these new incredible therapies serve such a role. And so I use autoimmune as an example for patients that are really struggling. We have to get that inflammation under control in order to start the healing process. And so we can do that through biologic therapies. But at what point are we able to actually bring the disease process into remission? Does that require staying on the medication indefinitely? Or can we layer in a functional medicine approach by actually looking at what is triggering and mediating that autoimmune process in the body, and then bringing in all of these other potential tests and things to find the root cause of the autoimmunity, which typically goes back to gut permeability and environmental triggers and genetic triggers and all of these things that just get overlooked in the traditional approach to autoimmune disease. So really, there's such this need to make sure that pharmacists with all of this incredible knowledge are part of a functional medicine care team, because we have patients that are going to be seeking this approach more and more, as we talked about in the beginning, because medicine is failing them by itself. So that was really where I just saw these different needs for pharmacists to have our own space within the functional medicine field so that we could collaborate and work together and really carve out what our role was going to be. And so we started this organization just as a Facebook group initially, and then grew it into an actual membership in 2020. And so, I was still working as a pharmacist, and then I was in a clinical pharmacy role, and then ultimately a market director role. So I was leading 11 stores and still just building all of this kind of behind the scenes, like a very grassroots effort. It wasn't a business, because I was also so focused on this bigger vision of seeing functional medicine become the standard of care, not just in my own life or in the pharmacy profession, but for the world, right? And so I had some really amazing opportunities in my former employment to actually test these ideas of how could we bring food as medicine into, a mass retail store and potentially help patients in this multidisciplinary care type of way. So it was an amazing experience, but sometimes the universe has other plans for us. And so because the project that I was working on ultimately was sort of tabled and postponed, I had to come back to my role as a market director. And that was kind of a defining moment at the beginning of 2020, where I said, okay, well, if traditional pharmacy chains aren't quite ready to implement functional medicine at scale, what do I do from here? Do I just wait and hope that maybe someday it'll happen? No, like I can't wait. Our patients can't wait. And so that was what really prompted my journey into entrepreneurship, was a door closing and realizing that I couldn't wait. And it was time to start bringing this to more people through our organization. So 2020 was when I actually created the membership. And that first year was really just starting to raise awareness of what we were working on, creating our partnerships with some of these different training organizations that I had mentioned before, and building this community. So, of course, no one knew exactly what 2020 was going to bring, and we ended up having a pandemic on our hands, but in some ways it worked to our advantage as well, because, then people were really looking for ways to connect online. And so having an online business first and foremost gave us a space to start asking questions, about how are we treating, these infections, and what are we doing? This is all before vaccines were even available. And what were we seeing in clinical practice, and how could we manage all of these things with lifestyle? So that was something else that really prompted the next evolution of, okay, this can't just solely exist in social media and on Facebook and, all of that. And so I ended up hiring a website designer who built a very rudimentary first version of the website, but that didn't last very long because I realized I needed more help. And interestingly enough, that website designer that I then sought out was your website designer. So
yes,
this was part of how Blair and I actually came to working more closely together, because I said, I see that you have your Pharmapreneur Academy. I've been through some of the courses, like the forums and everything are so great. I would love to work with the person that you've hired, because I need to build something that is going to actually work for FMPHA. And so you connected me with Jill. And that was kind of the start of all of this. So kind of fast forward a little bit, I think into, 2022, I had stayed connected, of course, with you and with Jill, and we were still growing and scaling everything with FMPHA. I actually, in the process of all of this, this is a big piece of my journey, I guess, that I don't need to fast forward through. But throughout all of this, I was caregiving for my mom, who was very sick with cirrhosis. And so she ultimately passed away in 2021 in the fall. So we were still in the middle of COVID. I was still managing stores. I was still building FMPHA. And somehow trying to find ways to take care of myself, which was not going very well. I had all kinds of hormone issues, from stress and burnout and birth control and all of these things that came crashing down at the same time, along with my mental health. Very high functioning anxiety and depression that I was masking beautifully. It's actually kind of funny. I have this mug here from 2021. I got the Best of the Best Single Care Pharmacy Industry Leader Award. And the day that I went to do this photo shoot was the day that I realized I actually had legitimate clinical depression. And I felt like a complete shell of myself because I had to go do this whole video shoot, photo shoot, right? Like here I am, like the picture of a pharmacy industry leader, right? Full face of makeup and lashes and glam and hair and blowout and all of it. And I got home from that and I just washed all the makeup off my face and looked in the mirror and I was completely empty inside. And this was 1 week before my mom passed away. And I just knew then that I couldn't keep up like this. And so, again, it was like the universe sort of stepped in and sort of closed this other door, right? Of like, yeah, you've done all of this for so long and you did everything that you could to take care of your mom and to continue working and all of these things, but you have to take care of yourself now. And so at that point, I took 10 weeks of leave from work and I checked into an intensive outpatient program. So I was in therapy for 3 hours a day, 3 days a week, learning all of the cognitive behavioral therapy skills that I never utilized in my whole life, right? In 30 plus years of living with, a mom that struggled with alcoholism and had never been to a day of therapy. So it was really eye-opening, just to start to unwind all of that, a whole lifetime of trauma. And through that process, I also started to get really clear on where did I want to go now? What was next for me? I knew that continuing to climb the corporate ladder was not going to be the answer. And thankfully, a new opportunity had opened up for a remote work from home position in social media management and influencer management of all things. So I had been very involved in the online influencer space for the last couple of years, through my work as one of the first employee influencers at our company, but also just because it was a passion of mine. I've been on MySpace since the early days and all those fun things. And it just was something I enjoyed in this creative outlet. And so I sort of looked at it as this opportunity to really step out of healthcare for a little bit. And to me, that was part of healing medicine for sure, is healing my own burnout, and learn some new skills, right, in marketing, because I knew that for FMPHA, I had all of this clinical background and I had all of this operational leadership background, but I felt like the piece that was missing was this marketing component, right, of continuing to spread this message of what our mission was and to continue bringing in new pharmacists to the organization. And so I took that role and kind of stayed on just as a PRN pharmacist, to keep my skills sharp. And it was incredible. It was a really amazing experience. But within 9 months, I had already burned through all of my PTO. The world was starting to open back up. Conferences were going on again. And so I realized that I needed to cut my hours back so that I could actually dedicate more time to FMPHA. And so in that year, in 2022, this was basically like a year after my mom had passed, I decided to go back to being a part-time pharmacist, so 24 hours a week. And that way I would have like dedicated time, like 2 days a week to work on FMPHA, a couple days at the pharmacy to kind of, again, keep that steady paycheck and continue to implement functional medicine as a community pharmacist. And everything was going great. I was like feeling so much happier, and like I had really found, my stride. But there were also some things that still felt like they were missing. And so kind of like fall of 2022, you and I had reconnected, and started talking about this opportunity for a retreat in Costa Rica. I know you had just gotten involved with actually being part of the retreat center, and I was super interested, but way too scared at that point. And I was like, no, I can't. I don't have that much money, or I don't know how I would add that into everything I'm doing, all the reasons of why I couldn't be involved with a retreat center in Costa Rica. But I was like, I will come to your retreat. So sign me up as soon as your sales page goes live. I want to be there. And so February of this year, we had the retreat. I actually had the opportunity to go down a little bit early and spend some extra time in Costa Rica, exploring even more healing modalities like energy medicine and plant medicine and all of these just incredible things. And then come into the healing medicine retreat, finally feeling like everything made sense. And I could finally look back over my entire life, and especially the last, year, and see why it all had to happen the way that it did, right? And sometimes losing someone that is closest to us is sort of like our own awakening, that we don't realize how short life really is, and we take for granted that, we just are living our day-to-day life and sort of on autopilot almost, and just so deep into the muck and the mire and just all of it, that we forget, like, we are the medicine. We are the medicine that the world needs, and we have to take care of ourselves first in order to be able to share our gifts with others. And I felt like that's what I really took out of the healing medicine retreat, was just this clarity of, what a beautiful life we get to live. Like, it's hard, and we all go through trauma and really difficult points in our lives. But I'd started studying a little bit about positive intelligence. And part of that looks at how, every challenge that comes our way is really a gift and an opportunity, but we just have to be able to shift our mindset to be able to see that. So it all made sense, that I realized, I would have never ended up in Costa Rica had it not been for my mom ultimately passing away. But now I could see that being such a greater purpose, right? That I know she would have wanted that for me. She would be so happy and so proud to see her daughter now leading retreats for other people in Costa Rica and helping them find their purpose and their passion in their life, and looking at all the adversity that they've faced against and know that they can get through it too. So, very long story to get to where we are today, and to really share just how transformative that retreat is. But I'm just so grateful for all of it, and for us being connected over the years, and for your amazing leadership in this space, because it takes a lot to be able to create a space and to hold that space for other people to do that level of healing.
Yes. And I truly believe, we went to pharmacy school or nursing school or medical school to learn how to be healers. We may not have called it that, but as you were talking about the new technologies that are coming out, the monoclonal antibodies that are being used for autoimmune, and all of these amazing technologies that if we could combine that with our intuition, with our understanding of human nature and lifestyle modification and high quality food and vitamins, if we could help people achieve remission, if we could help people reverse their chronic conditions, and I truly believe that's possible. If we could approach mental health in a different way, other than, this is a lack of serotonin in the brain or whatever, and get to modalities like CBT to understand what are the root causes of, some of these issues. Is there inflammation in the brain that's connected? How does emotional processing affect depression and anxiety? And, now things are being, like, psychedelic medicine is being studied for treatment of clinical depression. There's so many different types of therapies that are going to continue, I think. I was talking to a drug developer the other day, and they were talking about using AI to develop new medications. And I think that we're just scratching the surface of the number of compounds that are going to be available to us in the future. But I think that human piece of it, of realizing that in order to heal others, we have to prevent ourselves from burnout. We have to protect our own energy. And I know during the pandemic that there was so many healthcare professionals that did get to that point of burnout, and, putting themselves and their health on the line. That was the reason I really wanted to host the Healing Medicine Retreat, was to create a space at this beautiful retreat center, as you mentioned, that I am a partner investor in, and bring people down who were interested in changing the way that they practice, starting with themselves. And those personal practices are what we introduce in the Healing Medicine Retreat. So the way we really designed it, and the way Lauren and I will work with attendees of the Healing Medicine Retreat, is we focus the first 3 days really on getting in touch and doing that inner work, the emotional processing, the getting to the root causes of what's causing my limiting belief about whether or not it's even possible for me to, become a nationally recognized speaker on diabetes care. So as we are working through some of these workshops, you'll have the opportunity to create that vision, and then to identify when there are thoughts and things coming up that hold us back, whether it's imposter syndrome, saying, I'm not expert enough to do that, or I don't want to put myself out there. That seems too cringe, putting myself out there on the internet or whatever. So really trying to get a better sense and understanding of where we're maybe limiting ourselves in some certain ways. We focus the first half of the retreat really doing that personal inner work. At the halfway point of the retreat, so it's Saturday to Saturday, February 3rd through the 10th, 2024. The halfway point, we're going to take a free day. We're going to go explore the area, have some excursions. This retreat center is about a 10-minute walk from a local beach that is absolutely gorgeous. And oftentimes we will spend every day at the beach at sunset, and then before coming back to have a high vibe, high quality meal at the restaurant in our retreat center. So half of the retreat is really focused on the inner work and doing the work of self-expression, so that the second half of the week, when we begin putting to paper our goals and our vision for 2024, we want you to walk away with a plan. This is what I see for myself. This is what I see for my business or my professional life. Here's the education I'm going to, need to get there. Here's the connections or networking opportunities that I want to pursue. Here's the conferences I want to go to. I mean, that was a huge step for me last year in deciding intentionally which conferences I wanted to put my energy into. And it really changed the way I look at how I'm spending my time. Now, I don't go to conferences because everybody else is going to a conference. I go to a conference if I'm truly excited and lit up about, what I'm there to achieve. So the Healing Medicine Retreat is designed not only to help you instill some of those personal practices like daily yoga and meditation, going for a walk, spending time in nature, learning what works for you. It's also built for some personal development practices. And then the second half of the week is the professional development. How does this self-expression run parallel to business? I like to say business is an act of self-expression. So you are your business if you're a healthcare consultant. How are you putting yourself out there online? What is your niche? What is your focus? That's the mastermind portion of the week. And it will be fun because both myself and Lauren and one of our other facilitators, Michael Klein, are all entrepreneurs and have been entrepreneurs and can help, especially newer consultants in the space, kind of navigate the beginning journey of the entrepreneur. So all that to say, this idea of, coming to a retreat, I've heard people say, well, I won't know anyone there. That is, that's actually for me, some of the funnest parts of putting together this retreat, because a lot of these people, everyone that's coming down to Costa Rica, Lauren or I will have a contact call with. So we screen the individuals, making sure everyone's kind of on the same page. We pick out a very small group of people to attend these retreats. And it is really, if you are, a person that doesn't put yourself out there a lot, to get out of your comfort zone and to go to, a foreign country. Costa Rica is very safe, but a place that's accessible and also facilitated so that you don't have to worry about not knowing anyone. You don't have to worry about coming solo. You will meet your lifelong friends and some of your new business besties in this group. So if you're interested in the idea of attending a facilitated retreat, we are hosting a free virtual event on Thursday, December 28th at 7 p.m. Central Time. Lauren, myself, and Mike will be forming a Zoom group that you can sign up for. If you want to go to pharmapreneuracademy.com/newsletter, we'll be sending out and sharing more information about that event as it comes a little bit closer. So I will send a link to the Zoom session probably in the next few weeks. So sign up for that. And then you can join Mike and Lauren and I to get a small taste of what you're going to experience in Costa Rica. And if you're interested in joining us in Costa Rica, check out pharmapreneuracademy.com/healing medicine retreat for all the details about what you can expect when you join us for the 2024 Healing Medicine Retreat. So, Lauren, I just wanted to thank you for joining me on the Healing Medicine Show, for sharing your story so open-heartedly, and for the advocacy that you're doing for pharmacists and for functional medicine in general in bringing it to the mainstream of healthcare.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to share on this call, and I really cannot wait for everyone that's going to be joining us in Costa Rica. I know it's going to be a life-changing, transformational experience for all of the incredible women who choose to say yes.